So I am going to jump to our next part, which is my favorite part. I call it the Hearts and Minds segment. Pam, I'm so grateful that you're here. I've known you for many years, and you're just so impressive to me. And I really appreciate you taking the time to be here right now. And I know the people who are here are too. I gave a little bit of context. I'm not there to really ask you about any of those things or really what your opinion. I really just want to hear, like the segment title says, like what's in your heart and what's in your mind. And, and I'm not talking about personally, I'm talking about professionally.
But we could go there. It's okay, Brad.
We could totally go there. Well, that's an interesting question.
We're sitting at the Brooklyn Diner, like we do quite often, and we'll just catch up over some coffee and trade stories.
I love it. Okay. So there's so many things I would love to talk to you about or actually illuminate for the audience here. There are three things that are interesting about who you are professionally. And I would say, well, four things, and I mentioned a little bit before. One is you started mainly in content and marketing, working in Nickelodeon, basically since kind of like the early days. I don't know if it was in the very, very, very beginning. But
I wasn't there at launch, but keep going.
Yeah. So, it's amazing to me that you have seen not just the trajectory of Nickelodeon before it was even bought by Viacom, right? And seeing how this cable network there was Nickelodeon, then there was, MTV that was bought by Viacom and all these brands that were on cable television, and see where we have gone today in terms of the media landscape that I just talked about, right? So that's number one. So you started in content and marketing. When I met you, were the CMO of Nickelodeon, and now you're the president of consumer products. So the reason why I wanted to show media trends and retail trends together is that you are that persona. You are this media meets retail, meets consumers, meets branding, meets advertising, professional executive. That's number one. So, I'm so curious about what you're thinking about that space. What are you and your teams going through right now? How are you helping them? That's one thing that's so interesting to me. The other thing is that you're basically the global head of this particular division, which is like one of the biggest divisions in ViacomCBS. Again, they merged Viacom and CBS together, and very recently. And so, now where everybody is all over the world, right? And every time I would call you, you'd be like, your assistant would say, oh, she's on the other, she's in, I don't know, in Thailand or something, or Mexico or something. Like every day, it seemed like you were in another country. So how is that really, change in this, self-quarantine, shelter at home? And then the third thing that I want to touch upon is you as a leader, and how were you advising people, especially your mentees, who I know many women in Viacom always came to you for advice on how to be such a successful woman, and in this business, and, what does it mean to be a great leader today? So those are the three main things, the big picture of like, what makes me so curious about what makes you tick and why you're so successful and influential. So let's start with the global thing, because that's interesting. We've been talking about.
Well, we could start with just saying thank you, Brad, for having me and to check in on each other. How's that?
That's great. You don't think I've said thank you a million times?
No, thank you for having me today.
Oh my God, thank you.
Yeah. How are you doing, Brad? You okay?
Thanks for asking. It depends on the day, right? My job is really, as you can see, to really immerse myself in what's going on outside of us. And although it piques my curiosity, I'm also trying to find things that are inspiring right now. And that's what I try to do here. So, if I were to say that I wasn't sad about everything that's going on, I probably would be a sociopath. So that's that. And number two, I'm grateful too, because I live in Manhattan. and I actually left the city, not because of New York City, mainly because I have a small apartment, and I thought it would be better to be out in nature. And I'm grateful that my sister-in-law, my brother, my 3-year-old nephew, and my 1-year-old niece allowed me to come here. And I've been here for 5 weeks. And I know people have been asking me, why don't you wear a nicer shirt? I literally have 3 t-shirts. So, and I don't want to order from Amazon. So if you could send me some consumer products, SpongeBob t-shirts or whatever, I'd be grateful.
I know people.
Anyway, how are
Well,
you?
I did want to check in on you, and it's interesting because first of all, you are you're an old friend. You are so impressive, and what you're doing in the culture classes is so, I think, incredibly informative for so many people. I get the benefit of having my own Brad Grossman culture class on a pretty regular basis. And again, I have to say, I'm thrilled to see you, and I am thrilled to be part of this today. And it is how we're starting our meetings now. You talked about leadership and leading now in a global environment, and there isn't a conversation over the last 5 weeks that doesn't begin with how are you? No, how are you? How are you doing? How's your family? How are you holding up? And it's, and I love the way you started the culture class, because you started with, the first week people were just getting adjusted. And then it went on from there. And now you can't wake up in the morning without knowing somebody who hasn't been impacted by this, who's either currently sick or lost someone. And, and being in New York and being in New York City has been honestly taken an emotional toll on so many of us. I had a global staff meeting 2 weeks ago, and it was really hard, but I think the most important thing was just to talk about what's going on, and to wake up and see the Javits Center, where we had Toy Fair only a couple of weeks ago. We had a global team represented, and we were walking the halls of the Javits Center looking at our incredible new line of Blue's Clues toys with Just Play, and our Turtles line, and all the incredible work going on. And now it's a hospital. Seeing our tennis stadium turn into a hospital, Central Park, where, I've been with so many of my friends to see some of the greatest live shows of my life, or just take a walk, it's a hospital. So, let's just start by saying you cannot be, you must begin every conversation checking in on people. And that's what we've been doing. And I am thrilled to see you and check in on that. And so it's really where it starts. For ViacomCBS, as you mentioned, I really grew up at this company. It's been the most amazing career journey to go from, quite frankly, sales and marketing to now leading a global consumer products team has been nothing short of a privilege. And right now, I think leading a global team, we've really been focused on having very intentional communications. And if you go back 5 weeks, where did we start? We started first with technology. Our company, like many companies, I'm sure many people watching, the first thing you did was, okay, so now we've got to try this work from home thing, and let's see if we can all connect with each other. And our technology team did an amazing job. You take for granted, but literally on that first day, I remember being on the phone with the UK team. Many of our team members didn't even have cell phones. People left their laptops at the office. I had lawyers calling me, I need a printer. And so the first thing we did was we shored people up to make sure they had what they needed, which obviously was a lot of technology. And, my husband always teases me, are you Zooming today? Are you on Microsoft Teams? Are you doing Blue Jeans? I mean, who knew we'd have like all these different ways to connect? And I will say I'm a pretty good connoisseur now.
What's your favorite?
I gotta tell you, I'm loving the Zoom, because I
Right.
like the whole gallery thing. But it's been really amazing. And by the way, sometimes good old FaceTime. Sometimes I'll just pop in on a friend of mine. I know one is watching now, and I'll say, hey, what's going on? And the FaceTime thing is actually still very efficient. So I think technology is definitely the first thing we did to survive and adjust in this new world. The second thing we've done is really been intentional about our communications. And, it's a company, I work for a media company. It's probably one of the best media companies in the world as far as communicating to the consumer. But now we really have to be intentional about what's going on. And I'll say it starts at the top of the company. I mean, Bob has a daily meeting on what's going on. Our HR teams are super connected.
Right, Bob, the CEO.
Bob Bakish, our CEO, has
Yep.
been very connected to what's going on. Our HR teams, again, intentional to connect on a daily basis to make sure our employees have what they need. And I've been intentional with the team on how we're communicating. Really, it is important to make sure during this time that people are informed and they feeling they're connected. I can't believe I'm not walking the hallways, right? You take that for granted. You walk in the hallways, you're checking in, how's it going? As somebody who's part of an amazing consumer products group, you can only imagine it's like every turn I take is some cool new art design or new consumer product. And it's a great way to not only see everybody, but also see obviously the products are going on. You mentioned being around the world. I mean, quite frankly, I don't know how you do your job if you don't understand the market, you don't understand the team, you don't understand the clients, you don't understand the store checks. People always used to tease me about shopping. It's not shopping, it's actually, well, it's a little bit of shopping, but it's also a lot of store checks. And so, that's not happening anymore. I will say it's kind of amazing to be, last week I was in Sao Paulo and the UK and click in, click out. But the point is to stay connected. That's really the point. And we've been trying to use our communications. We've been trying to make sure our communications have purpose. And that's very different than just sending an email update. And again, the communications that we've been providing our team have been hopefully informative. I mean, half of our staff meeting last week was not about, the latest design coming out from JoJo or what's happening with Baby Shark or Blue's Clues. We put our head of HR, Courtney Oliver, front and center to make sure that the teams knew all the resources that were available to them. And so that piece has been really important. And as I mentioned, starting every team with a check-in. So it's very important. And then I'll close and I'll keep going if you or not. But the last piece after technology and communication has definitely been culture. And culture right now. I mean, Brad, you are the culture zeitgeist. You are the master of it. You are the best commentator on it. Oh, I know you are. It's okay. But I think culture matters now more than ever. And I read a great article a friend of mine said to me the other day, and really what we've been doing is trying to shore up our community and the community within ViacomCBS and all the different groups. And for, from where I'm sitting, obviously the community of consumer products. And I think it's really important right now for people to feel connected. And it's day one, first meeting I had like this, David Lynn, who runs our international business, who is one of the best people I work for. He started the first meeting and said, excuse me, I'm sorry, everybody needs to show up physically. And we all dialed in via Blue Jeans. And, most people do these calls on the phone. And he said, I want to see everybody. And that was day one. That was Monday morning of, being 5 weeks ago. And since then, I don't even think I do a phone call. I think it's now everyone's kind of FaceTiming. And so that piece of it is really important. And I will just also add that we have absolutely been having our cocktail hours, Zoom cocktail hours have been hilarious and awesome.
Every day or once a week?
There have been a few, let's just say. I get invited to a lot of Zoom cocktail hours.
And what do you drink?
But it is fun. Or, you'll show up. I was with the operations team last week and everybody had wear a funny hat day. And yesterday the Argentinian team was like, hey, what's your favorite Nickelodeon character? So the culture's alive. I was invited to attend the baking team the other day. It was great. But I think more importantly, most importantly, I should say, is also we have been, and again, it starts with the leadership of the company, maniacally focused on making sure that our community is structuring their lives in a way that is not overwhelming, because not only is it hard to sit in one place at home, but listen, I can't tell you, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people, I see some nodding heads, there are little children home. you're in an apartment. And, now our colleagues are teachers and their parents, and it is so challenging. And, or obviously we're all so concerned about our parents. And we have been constantly telling our teams to please build in downtime. I've done several meetings when the kids go to sleep because it's just easier. I'm really fortunate. I'm in a home like you. I have my husband here, and my two children are safe and healthy and down the hallway. And I'm so grateful for my backyard and, the amazing community I live in. But people don't have that. So we've been trying to flex into that. I did a couple of weeklies during a dog walk. I'm like, you know what, let's go walk the dog and talk. Put in the earbuds, pop outside, and try to get some air. And it's just, I think people.
So it's like mandatory balance. Now, if somebody says like, listen, Pam, like, could I, not be part of this meeting? I gotta, I have to take care of my kid, or I'm burnt out, or I need a rest. What do you?
1,000%.
Yeah.
There's not even 1,000%. I'll also say that not only do we make sure people do that, but last week I said, I just want to I told my team I'm taking last Friday off. I'm taking it off. Off doesn't mean just because you're at home. I'm taking it off, and can't tell you how many people said, "Wow, thanks," because I this is a lot. It's not, forget just being in your home and your apartment and your kids. What's going on with all of us. It's daunting to watch the numbers tick up every day and the lack of uncertainty. I was having a great conversation with some of my friends last night, and we were saying the scariest part is the uncertain. So it's okay. It's okay. And I think my job right now, and our job when we're leading teams, is to really create a better new normal.
Yeah. Yeah. And where do you think, from what you're learning, just whether it's personally or professionally, this could lead to a better new normal?
Well, I think we're all realizing that we need to be really just constantly transparent. I think, you and I talked before this about attributes of leadership, and boy, are they magnified right now. And I think transparency is vital. Not pretending that you're not living through something. I'll be honest with you, it's been challenging for me sometimes to be super, here's what's going on in my life. And, you always feel like as a leader, you need to lead, you need to be really very focused on the business and driving the business. And I think right now it's really important to let people know, you know what, I'm struggling. I'm feeling the same thing that you are. So transparency has been vital. Flexibility, to your question, has never been more important. I'm astounded. Again, like you, I'm talking to a lot of my colleagues in the industry. I'm astounded. I am astounded that people aren't providing their teams with the same flexibility and demanding things that are, first of all, I just think are, not right. I think also we do have to maintain strength and confidence and be strong.
So, well, let me ask you a question. I don't know if you're experiencing this, but I would just love your opinion just as a leader in general. Yeah. And somebody did just text something that actually shaped this thought about, people getting furloughed right now, right? And, there must be a lot of anxiety from employees, whether they're yours or somebody else. Like, I have to perform. I don't want to be the one. Do you have an opinion about, how some of those people, should balance that fear with their love for work, with the reality? And
I mean, listen, it's happening everywhere, and those conversations are going on. And, I'll say again, from our perspective, we have been really just focused on the health of the employees. And it's your job as a leader to make sure people are feeling good about how they show up, and they're feeling connected, and they're feeling heard more than ever. How do you acknowledge somebody when you're not walking down the hallway? And so I think for us, we're just trying to be really connected to people and teams, and highlighting. We've had some business wins. I mean, we'll get to the business in 1 second. I mean, it's really challenging, but we've also had some great wins. And now's the time to magnify that for people. And again, lead by example, right, Brad? So I took a day off. I'm doing dog walks. I'm trying to give myself that time. And I think people are around me. Hopefully people don't feel like, oh God, if I don't click in, I'm not going to be seen. I mean, we don't want that. It's just,
Okay.
there's too much going on right now.
Well, that's great advice. And, we're all trying to figure out how to balance it all. And that makes sense. You're leading by example. Like you're showing people, like whether it's on Instagram, I know you're active on social media, right? I mean, it's good for not only your friends to see, but your employees and your customers.
It is important
Right?
to show that we just signed a big Rugrats Pickles deal, I will say.
Yeah, let's talk business
That's
now.
important. No, I think it's important. I mean, listen.
I saw that, by the way. That looks awesome.
I work on brands like MTV, Comedy Central, and South Park. I'm working with Paramount Pictures and SpongeBob and Paw Patrol. I mean, why not talk about the unbelievable things going on across those brands? And it is, you talked about the media companies, and right now, I'll say what's super interesting, what you didn't say, Brad. I don't normally catch you not saying anything. You covered a lot. But what you didn't talk about also, I think, is how so many people in entertainment are pivoting right now, and how, Bob and the company's calling it adaptive creativity. And right now, it's so interesting.
Yeah, what is it? That's a great term. It sounds like a great term. What is it?
It is a great term, and we talked about it. Well, basically, it means like, listen, here's where we are, and there's so many interesting ways that people who make content are connecting with their audiences. I mean, one of my favorite examples is MTV right away launched a global Unplugged series featuring Wyclef Jean, and so immediately went to that. Our Pluto channel, which is, as you know, is an incredible free streaming channel, is now doing more educational platforms.
Pluto's a free streaming channel. That's another one, right?
Noggin, which is our amazing educational platform, is free on Apple TV. Again, let's help people subscribe to that. I'm sure everybody watches CBS News, and if you've noticed, those guys, oh my God, from having the New York office shut down to now using our local studios.
Amazing.
And I am sure we have a lot of Trevor Noah fans on here, as well as the Colbert Show. All of these guys are now broadcasting from their home. So I think the way we have pivoted from a content creation perspective has been amazing. And then I do have to give one more plug, because my company is known for being really having tremendous social impact. And right away, our youth and entertainment group launched #AloneTogether, which is a great pro-social piece. And Nickelodeon, I grew up in Nickelodeon, and Nickelodeon said, we are going to do #KidsTogether, and last week hosted a town hall that really does what Nickelodeon does best, and that is make what we're going through right now less scary for kids. And so we're going to have the Kids' Choice Awards coming up. So there's a lot of content being made right now that's pivoting during this time. And I think the most important thing is we're trying also not to be tone deaf. And you could have a whole other culture class on how the advertising in week 1 looked to where the advertising is now in week 5. And how retail even started from showing, backyard gatherings, getting ready to Easter, which felt tone deaf to obviously where we are now.
At Easter, I remember you taught me that was like the newest, sales day for all consumer products. I remember that. It wasn't like that just happened.
I'm going to tell you something that makes me so happy, but we'll talk about that separately. Easter, of course, listen, it's a very important holiday from a consumer products perspective. It's a very important seasonal holiday. And what I'm really interested in right now, and it's too early unless there's some retailers watching, I cannot wait to see the Easter numbers, because it's a very significant holiday. And my thinking is that maybe was Easter up, was Easter down, were people splurging for Easter or not? And I'm not quite sure.
Right. Well, I did say that last week we did have that narrative of going from, the worst week ever, as the Surgeon General said, to with Passover and Easter being more of like a rebirth and a renewal and the rise of spring. And there was a little bit of hope. And I think that sentiment has been carrying over with this, notion of our rematriculation into society, so.
Yeah, I mean, we're hearing. I've spoken. I can't tell you which retailers they are, but I will tell you that I obviously very close relationships at a lot of our partners, and people going into Easter want to celebrate. They wanted to buy Easter clothes and have the egg hunts and paint and so forth. And so again, it will be really interesting to see what those numbers look like. I'll tell you, we were there. We were definitely ready to support them with our products. Just from an industry perspective, you mentioned the New York Times article this morning. I too was going to reference that. That was obviously staggering. And we're seeing a lot of that play out in real life from where I'm sitting. And, the retailers that you spoke about, what's happening is the biggest trend or the biggest decline we're seeing right now, quite frankly, is no surprise. We're all reading the non-essential items. And, it's really been impacting apparel and accessories and footwear. And for us, that is obviously a very important part of our business. And so it's sad. And we really pray. We have amazing relationships with a lot of partners like Kohl's and JCPenney and Primark. And, the good news is I know they are planning for holiday. They're planning for spring 21. Obviously, we want them to come back. But those are the guys that are really hard hit. Our specialty retailers, Topics and Party City. But there are some bright spots. I mean, the value segment is doing very well.
Well, it's important to have empathy for your customers too. I mean, and like you were talking about your employees, to be a great leader now, it's really about, like you were saying, what do you need to, like we have seen the evolution of advertising and how brands are positioning themselves in this new landscape. I remember the first week I had clients call me and say, well, what are we supposed to do being a brand? And we actually had Michael Nyman, I don't know if you know him, who was the former chairman, CEO of PMK and just started his own marketing firm called Acceleration. And we were talking about just 4 weeks ago about how you have to be sensitive. You can't sell, even though you have to sell, but you also kind of have to be present in the conversation. I just wanted to show you.
Brad, I just want to jump in because I've never been prouder of the leadership team at our consumer products group. I mean, our team is speaking to our partners every single day, multiple times a day. The connection has been, quite frankly, extraordinary. And I will say that a lot of our partners continuously to send me emails saying you and your team not only is checking in on how our business results are doing, but also how am I doing? How is the health of my business? And, and again, we still have to project numbers. I mean, I'm still running a business here, but we're doing it in a way that is really trying to be thoughtful to the current situation. And again, the ViacomCBS consumer products leadership team, it's astounding. They are day in and day out checking in on our business. I'm super proud of that.
Right. Just to kind of let everybody know, what Pam does. I mean, we talked about the fulcrum of consumerism, retail, and media. You're basically licensing brands, whether it's SpongeBob or Rugrats.
As the head of global consumer products, I license the IP that Viacom has. So it's everything from Paramount Pictures and the Unbelievable Library, MTV, Comedy Central. Now merged with CBS, I get to work on Star Trek. So excited.
And all the Showtime shows I got too, right?
Showtime, Penny Dreadful, Billions, Bring It On. It's so fantastic. Stephen Colbert. And of course, again, Nickelodeon, SpongeBob, and Blue's Clues, and Baby Shark, and Paw Patrol. And
Baby Shark.
I'll just keep plugging.
Keep going. Pam, I just wanted to end on this one thing because we were talking about brands, and I could do a whole culture class on this, and we'll have to maybe have you come back and talk about this. But I've been thinking about how to be a brand, not just be a brand to your customers on a B2B level, but to a brand to your consumers and a brand to your employees. And, you know, these are some of the things that I came up with. I don't know if you agree with them, is, you know, empathy. You've been talking a lot about that. Everybody's been talking about authenticity before. Now it's empathy. Utility and necessity. You have to make sure you're there for them in their lives, providing a service. You got to show them that you're protecting your employees. You need to be generous. You need to be a sharer of information and educator. You need to step in as a global leader, which, you know, this actually just was released yesterday, that 92% of those polled say they admire companies that take action to stop the spread of the virus or take action to alleviate its impact. 89% said the government alone can't stop the pandemic and that companies need to help. And it seems like you are checking off all those boxes, and, you know, we'll just see by example who are other brands or people who could actually, you know, be part of that checklist. So Pam, we only have a couple minutes. You're amazing. Thank you for coming on. I wish you the best of luck. Really, you know, your leadership skills and strategies and persona is contagious. And I hope we all learn from that. And this is a good segue for who we're going to bring on next week. Okay. And next week, as we talked about consumerism today, I am so excited that we're going to have an amazing woman next week named Jana Rich. And she has her own, I don't know, do you know Jana?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, really? Oh, good. She has an executive placement team. I just met her, so I'm grateful to meet her. An executive placement team. Where she works with startups, Stitch, Screen Gems, Warby Parker, venture capital firms, used to work at Korn Ferry, Russell Reynolds, and she has served on the Forbes Executive Women's Board and the director of the Stanford Business School Women. So next week, we're all going to figure out, how do we get our next job? How do we survive our jobs? And, you know, like, what should we know as employees and small business owners and entrepreneurs in terms of where the meaning of work will be going. So I hope everybody comes on next week. And again, just to let you know, or an ask, if you can fill out that survey, that would be great. Pam, thank you. I'm probably going to get higher marks.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. See you next Wednesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you so much. See you next week.